Ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding for the Worshipful, the Mayor of Gravesham.
Please remain standing. Can I please invite the chaplain, Mayor Marion Feel-White, to say a prayer.
The Bible reading this evening is from St. Paul's letter to the Philippians from chapter 2. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of the others. So let us pray together, each one of us, according to our individual belief, as we remember this night those of all faiths and none. Dear God, we give thanks for our new mayor and her escort, for the deputy mayor and deputy mayoress. We pray for them in this year of service to Gravesham and beyond, for all with whom they will come into contact. And we ask you to fill them with wisdom, joy, and perseverance as they represent this proud borough of Gravesham. We pray for all our leaders and councillors, the officers and the staff of our council, and all who are employed by them. We express our gratitude for the opportunity to serve this borough, for the gifts that we have that enable us to make a difference in the lives of those we serve, and for the chance to do something special and meaningful with our lives. Help us to embrace the challenge and responsibility we have and to work with integrity and common sense. This night, give us the wisdom to make intelligent decisions, the courage to make the tough decisions, and the character to make the right decisions. As we go forward with a vision and a mission to serve this borough and one another. Amen.
Thank you, Marianne. You may all be seated. Live streaming announcement. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of Gravesham Borough Council's full council meeting. This meeting is being live streamed via YouTube and recorded will be uploaded to YouTube within 2 working days, where it can be accessed by everyone. Members, please use the microphone in front of you when talking and ensure you turn your microphone off once you have finished speaking. Another member or officer may not be able to speak if your microphone is still on. Please note that the council visual equipment may, on some occasion, focus on or near to the public gallery, an area, therefore, those in attendance of this meeting may be filmed or recorded. Attendance at this meeting signify your agreement to this. If, as a member of the public, you do not wish to be filmed or recorded, please inform a council staff member in attendance, and we will try to assist where reasonable possible. On hearing fire alarm, we ask all attendees to immediately evacuate the building. Please evacuate via the nearest fire exit and make your way to the community square outside the main reception door. Item number 2, apology for absence. Are there any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Apologies have been received from Councillors Baines, Emma Elliott, Ridgers and Sizer.
Item number 3, to sign the minutes of the previous meeting. Are you all in agreement of the minutes of the previous meeting to be signed? Item number 4, declaration of interest. Are there any declarations of interest?
Madam Mayor, if I may, at this point, as normal, we will automatically and ordinarily take into account declarations that members have already made on their disclosable pecuniary interest form this evening, unless any members wish to specifically state any additional ones. Councillor Mead would just like to speak.
Sorry, Councillor Mead.
So thank you, Madam Mayor. Just in relation to item 9A on the gender, just for reasons of transparency, to declare that I am the founder of Kent with Ukraine, that I sit as a non-paid board member of the Ukrainian Foundation Unburned, and that I'm currently undertaking projects, again, on a completely voluntary basis around veteran reintegration in conjunction with the Ministry of Veterans Affairs of Ukraine. Thank you.
Councillor Jordan Mead, we do thank you. Item number 5, question received from member of the public. To answer any question received from member of the public of which notice has been given, I understand there is no questions have been received.
That's correct.
Item number 6, minutes of committee. Can I please ask for a mover and second for the following minutes? Item A, minutes of the meeting of Planning Committee held on Tuesday, the 5th of May, 2026, and Wednesday, the 13th of May, 2026.
Please to second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Item 6, Part B. Minutes of the meeting of the Cabinet held on Tuesday, 26th of May, 2026.
Please to move, Madam Mayor.
Please to second, Madam Mayor.
Parts. Item 6C.
Yes, okay. Stick with it.
Minutes of the meeting of the Overview Scrutiny Committee held on Thursday, the 4th of June, 2026.
Pleased to move, Madam Mayor.
Pleased to second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Item number 7, reserve minutes.
You can read that.
One reserve item has been received in relation to the regulation of the HMO section, which may consider at the Cabinet meeting on the 26th of May. I can please invite Councillor Mokrikock to speak on this item.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to reserve this item to bring the Article 4 directions to full council, as it was agreed at the most recent Cabinet meeting. I'm aware there's a lot of interest in this, so I thought it was important to bring it to the sovereign body of this authority to have that discussion if required, and to debunk a couple of myths. And the first one is how long this process takes. And I think all of us over a period of time have long suffered with how long some processes take, but it's got to be following process and following a constitution, but also following the law. And we've got to make sure that there is clear evidence base for these things, to make sure that the council isn't liable, but also we give due notice and make sure that everyone comes with us on this thing. So that's why we started this journey back in October last year, despite rumours to the contrary that we sort of managed to make this miraculously appear within a week. Anyone that's ever been part of council papers or any papers for any meetings everywhere knows that no paper can materialise within a week. So I thank the officers that have put together this and worked behind the scenes for some months to make sure that we had a paper ready for Cabinet just a few short weeks ago. And that gateway decision allowed us, Madam Mayor, to move on to dealing with these Article 4 directions. And it's, for me, it is not the emphasis that may be elsewhere. This is about decent homes, and this is about working with our colleagues in the housing department and through Councillor O'Malley's work with HMOs. And we get about 5 cases every month of unregulated HMOs, and we have to investigate them. And colleagues, you'll be aware, we recently were successful in a court case where there was an unlicensed HMO, and with the Renters' Rights Act now that comes through, the minimum fine is now £17,000 of this. This is about making sure we have control over those houses, making sure that we protect local amenity and the local area, but making sure that ultimately there is decent homes, and we are not allowing the residents of this borough to take possession of property through a rented property and something that could cause them harm. They've got to be to a high standard, and that's what we're empowering the housing team to do, and making sure that also we empower the residents to do this, because Article 4 direction simply means they have to get full planning permission. They can't just do this by themselves for wherever they want. We will have that control as a local authority now, if once these directions go through, and it's an important tool in the arm of the authority to make sure we can control that local amenity. So I thank officers for the work they've done so far to bring this forward. And because it didn't reach, I note the petition that took place, the 1,094 people that did the petition, it didn't meet the threshold, the 1,500 threshold, quite a low threshold for bringing it for debate. But it's important that not only do we debunk some myths, but we showcase that we are, as a listening authority, already proceeding with something that we know matters to people, Madam Mayor. So I wanted to bring it to the attention of the council this evening to showcase we're already doing that work, and we've been doing that work for some considerable time, and we will continue to do so to protect the residents of this borough. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Does anyone wish to speak on this subject?
You can invite the leader to wind up.
Okay. Sorry.
Councillor Rolls wishes.
Sorry, Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm pleased to stand to speak on this particular item. I think it's really important to debunk some of the myths that are out there that circulate online from the foot soldiers of other parties spreading disinformation. This particular item has been discussed by some time both behind the scenes as the Labour Party members, but also with directives from cabinet members, is something that we've been committed to for some time, listening to residents in the borough, that this is something that they wanted. But as Councillor Mockery Cox has set out, it's also primarily to ensure there's a good standard of homes in the borough and there's suitable family accommodation available, and not all of the family accommodation is being transferred to HMOs. So this directive will bring in protections around that, and it's something actually that this administration has been working on for a very long time. Goes back past October, but the initial request to officers happened in October, which precedes actually the petition that was being set up, that was put out there. We've been working on this because we are a listening council that listens to residents. We recognise when they want something changed and they want something done about a certain situation, but actually we'd seen this coming down the track for some time. You know, there's a number of myths circulating online at the moment, from the fact that, you know, people arriving into the borough can access council housing. They can't access council housing straight away. There's a waiting list for council housing, and it goes to people that have links to the borough for over a certain number of years, and that list, nobody jumps ahead on that list. But I'm very pleased as well that as a council that recognise the importance of council housing, that this authority is building more council homes for residents in this borough, and this authority recognises the challenges around housing and the cost of housing, and that's why we're doing all that we can to be able to tackle those issues, and that includes by marching forward and leading from the front on the issue of HMO licensing and Article 4 directives, rather than jumping on a bandwagon that's seen as a popular thing to do. It's something that we do as a local authority. We lead in this local authority. We listen to residents and we make sure that we deliver for them. And I'm very pleased that this is something that the Cabinet's discussed and is introducing, Madam Mayor, and I think it's a good opportunity to draw that to everyone's attention and hopefully tackle some of the disinformation that's out there. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Aaron Elliott, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to take a moment just to congratulate the authority on an excellent decision with the Article 4 for HMOs. Clearly, there's well over 1,000 people who have put some pressure on there in support of that decision. So thank you. I'd like to congratulate those petitioners as well as yourselves. Thank you.
Anybody else? In this case, we should bring the leader, Councillor Burden, to wind up, please.
Thank you. I'll use this one. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for bringing this debate to an end. Well, there wasn't been a debate really, is there? A couple of comments and general support. I think what is a shame is that we haven't actually talked about the issue, because there are 1,000 people who have signed a petition. They were motivated, encouraged and wound up to sign a petition. Perhaps there were wrong reasons to sign the petition, but nevertheless they signed it because many of them believed in what they were signing, that there was an issue. They weren't sure what probably about, but needed solving. It doesn't actually recognise the fact that we were working on the whole subject area last year and bringing forward the work. And I think if people who had, I've got to say it, from Reform, and actually made some inquiries as to was the council looking to do something in this area, they'd have probably been told we were doing something. I can't tell you all the detail of it yet, but we'll come back to you and let you know. It doesn't do any good to wind people up, upset people, because I think sometimes we should listen to the prayers that are made before a meeting. And I actually do. And the prayers today were talking about serving other people, about putting other people effectively before yourself, about considering the needs of other people. and looking after their needs. And that's our job. And part of that job is to reflect that not everybody can live in a 3, 4, 5, 6 bedroom house with multiple bathrooms, 16 cars or whatever. It doesn't work like that. Some people are living on their friend's sofa. That's where they're living. That's not good enough. Our job is to help everyone in our community, from those who want to start out and live somewhere they want to call home. It might be a room in a shared accommodation, or it might be a bigger property, 1, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms. That is the home they want to have. And we need to recognise our job as a council is to serve our entire community, not just part of it that we choose, or a part that makes the loudest noise, but all of it. And sometimes those people on those sofas are the quietest people in our community. And we need to always remember them and put them forward first sometimes. It doesn't mean this way we have to ignore those who have genuine concerns about too many HMOs coming into a street or to an area. And that's why this order's coming in, because we have to accept that that's not always appropriate to overload an area with too many HMOs. Yes, we've got to recognise people need somewhere to live, but we've got to think about what are the nature of the people moving into those houses, the number of people into those houses. What's the effect on the road and the network and the scene? And by bringing in this order, the planning team can reflect upon all of that to get the right decisions across the borough for our community, our entire community. Not just the householders in big houses, but those people who are living on their friend's sofa or on the street, who need somewhere to live. We all need that. Any one of us could fall on hard times and be living on a sofa. I know people who have done. And it's not a pleasant place to be, or being on the street, and not a good place to be. We need to help all our community, and this is part of that. So bringing in this order allows us to control HMOs. Does not stop them. It means that the applicant has got to come up front, give the details, publicise it, talk to the community and the neighbours. We understand what the HMO is, and we can bring orders in and controls in that will manage those HMOs. That's how we bring it forward properly. That safeguards all our community. That's why it's important to look after everyone, not just one or two people making a lot of noise. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
To consider report from officers of the council. Item 8, proposed public space protection order, nuisance vehicles. Members are presented with a report in relation to a proposal of public space protection order for nuisance vehicles. I will invite the Chief Executive to introduce the report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As normal, I'll keep this introduction brief. I'm sure members will have read the papers in front of them, but just to elaborate and say, as you've outlined, that this is a report proposing a new public spaces protection order under Section 59 of the Anti-Social Behaviour, Crime and Policing Act 2014 in relation to a range of nuisance vehicles borough-wide, and the papers in front of you this evening contain the requisite consultation feedback that we've had in bringing this to you this evening. With that said, Madam Mayor, I'd like to hand over to the leader.
Okay, sorry. For yours. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for bringing this one forward. I think, again, I would speak on this and I propose it as a motion on page 37, where the council's asked. I'll make that into a motion that we do go forward and do it. Before I continue, can I have a seconder, please?
Pleased to second, Madam Mayor, and reserve my right to reply.
Get there in the end. I'm on trial here with these things, I think. As far as this motion is concerned, it is actually, again, another one that serves the entire borough. We've all, as members over the years, had numerous people talk to us about motorbikes, quad bikes, cars parked in stupid places, being used on our public space, going down pavements, this new phase of e-bikes, and I know a lot of people have them. even the illegal ones, and are using them on our roads when they should only be using them at home. They are out there, and fortunately, we all see them. We know we've had people injured in the borough by people riding those things, and it's not good enough that we can't do and couldn't do anything about it. This order changes that situation. It empowers us and the police to use all our powers combined to deal with it. We can start working out where these people are. We can work with the police, and they've got drones. We can follow them if we need to, so we don't have to chase them down the road and in ourselves create an accident. Or we can have people report to us that they know people are using these sort of vehicles or inconsiderately parking. We can then deal with that information and use that and take it to court, or take the vehicles, or particularly take the e-bikes, because they are dangerous. And if these things are shooting along a pavement or a road and you happen to be in the way of it, they don't tend to slow down. And you may assume you can hear them. We can't all hear them. And trouble with the e-bikes, particularly if they're on the pavements or the roads, you don't hear them. I have a couple pass me each morning when I'm walking my dog. I know they're coming, but they're older ones and they rattle. I hear the rattling. Apart from that, I don't hear the e-bike. And if you walk out into the road and they hit you at some considerable speed, you get badly hurt. Even somebody as big and lumpy as me. It happens. It's not right. So we need to take control of the situation. This order will give us that power. We need to bring it in. We need to support it. We need to act together to protect our community from those who are inconsiderate in our community against everybody else in the population. It's a good order. It will bring help and support to all of us as members to deal with some of those queries and problems that get reported to us. So I think it's one that hopefully we'll all get behind and support. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Anyone? Councillor Pearson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'm in support of this motion. So because these nuisance bikes and vehicles are a nuisance, not only in the town centre of the borough, also in our countryside, where people are riding their horses, bikes and everything else. They are a danger to public, and it's about time that we got tough with them, and I'm pleased with this motion. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Councillor Deborah Cox.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I fully support this order. A lot of work has been conducted by colleagues in the Community Safety Partnership in conjunction with Kent Police, and there has been some lobbying with the Police and Crime Commissioner, which I conducted in Maidstone. I think it is important to tackle this antisocial behaviour across the borough, and as Councillor Pearson stated, not only in the town centre, but also in the rural areas. I think it's important to implement this as soon as we can, because in the summer holidays, of course, the activity is going to increase. And there is absolutely no regard for whether you're in a car, on a bicycle, walking, riding your horse, walking your dogs. They don't care. And it's not just e-bikes and e-scooters, it's quad bikes, it's the dirt bikes, and also cyclists, bicycles. So I think it's important to get this through, and it's the result of the public consultation was the residents were in favour and said this is a really big issue and a problem across the borough. So I think it's really important we all get behind this and support it and push it through as quickly as we can. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Gary Harding.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to say I absolutely support this motion because I think we all know I'm deaf. I'm in shock horror. I'm a deaf person. And I have to say, I was walking down the Single Road where these bikes, and they're not just getting bigger, but they're getting more powerful, and they're just getting quieter as well. And one day I was walking down Single Road, someone went straight past me, knocking me in the shoulder, didn't knock me over, but the cheeky chap turned round and called me a duffo. I thought, what's wrong with you people? But it's the antisocial element that they feel free to go off the pavement. Now, what happens if it was a pregnant woman or someone with a pram or an elderly person. Now, this is getting ridiculous because sooner or later, someone's going to find themselves badly hurt. And I fully support this motion because it's for the whole community, not just for people like me, but for everybody. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Jordan Mead, please.
So thank you, Madam Mayor. The Conservative group fully supports the motion that's been made this evening. When it comes to public space protection orders, I think there are two important factors. The first of them being education. And I'd like to think that following this motion being successfully passed tonight, that there's a lot of work that can be done by all of us as elected members to get the message out there that we now have this public space protection order in place. And then the other point is on enforceability. And as the leader rightly pointed out, that comes down to residents feeling enabled and empowered to actually report these issues into us. So I would like to think that there's some work that we can do through the Community Safety Partnership and in conjunction with Kent Police to actually streamline that process and make it easier now we've got the public space protection order in place in order to make that ease of access for residents to report that much more simpler. And so that we can get the data that we need to actually implement and make some changes on this. I think Councillor Pearson and Councillor Deborah Croxton were absolutely right to mention the impact that this has within the rural communities. As and when I can, I try and escape by walking down on our beautiful Saxon Shoreway, and it horrifies me to see grown adults. And I mean, I think there's a misconception sometimes that it's young people that are on these quad bikes. It's not. It's grown adults that are using quad bikes on that Saxon Shoreway and actually tormenting the horses and livestock that graze in those fields down there. So I'd like to see some rural task force action on the back of this PSPO. And as I said, it's got my group's full support this evening. Thank you.
Councillor Mockra-Cox.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I welcome the cross-party support for this motion. It does show how often I think it is in all of our mailboxes, be it urban or rural, that this issue constantly comes up. So it's right that we take as many powers as we can for it in order to tackle the issue. But I think one of the advances that's happened recently is the ability to tackle this via technology, and has been mentioned already that the use of drones and the use of our CCTV cameras and just our sort of networks is important to make sure we can tackle this as together as a community. I think it was important that Councillor Mead raised this isn't just young people. It's often perceived to be a young person issue, young people tearing around on bikes. But as the topic of dirt bikes was mentioned by Councillor Croxton, actually some of these dirt bikes are adults that are coming into our borough to do this on our fields. There was a case quite recently, I won't say recently, last summer, and a lot in, I think it was Riverview Ward, where the people were tracked to the Isle of Sheppey. They came from the Isle of Sheppey to do and tear around dirt bikes in Riverview Ward. Now, we were able to do that via technology, and they were able to be tracked and traced, and they were dealt with by Kent Police there. A good bit of partnership working across boroughs, across the areas, and working with our partners. And that's going to be essential moving forward, that this isn't just a technological thing, this isn't just a Gravesham Borough Council issue, but it's working with everybody as well. And I think education is absolutely going to be important for this, but it's education for not just those that intend to use it, but education for the public as well, that they have, as Councillor Mead right says, the confidence to report and the confidence to tackle this issue as well. So I think I welcome the cross-party support, and I think we are resourcing it from our point of view, but it's worth recognising we're not going to send out officers with nets to go and catch them. It's going to have to be a cross-party thing, using evidence. This isn't about catching people live. This may be about gaining the evidence we need to tackle them wherever they're at and to tackle the issue at source. And so it's not an immediate action issue, but it is one that will be done working together in partnership, because it's important we do so. And the final thing to say, Madam Mayor, is anyone that's watched Cabinet when this issue is talked about will know the leader's absolute desire to crush a vehicle of some sort, be it in terms of e-bike, e-scooters, large vehicles. We've got environmental enforcement later. I'm sure that will come up then. I hope, for the sake of all of our sanities at Cabinet, that the leader has the chance to crush a vehicle of some sort and to get his desire before this term ends. I wouldn't want his entire political career to, at the end of Gravesham Borough Council, at the end of LGR, to come to an end without him crushing at least one vehicle, Madam Mayor. For the sake of all that's holy, I hope that's in there as well.
Councillor Lanny-Robe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll keep it very brief because a lot of good points have already been made. I'd just like to say, though, that there's two unusual things here tonight. The first thing is to see such cross-party support, which is lovely to see because we all know how important this is and what a big issue it is to residents. Having been a councillor for over a decade, this is something that's continually increased. The second thing is that this covers the whole borough. It's a PSPO that covers a whole borough requires a lot of evidence to be able to make that work. And I think that's down to the hard work of officers, but also the input of residents participating in the consultation. So thank you to everyone out there that's contributed to this, but also the hard work from our cabinet member, Councillor Croxton, in trying to push this through and get this done. I think that needs to be recognised because this is something that's really important to residents in the borough, and it's great to see it coming forward. And thank you to everyone who supported that this evening.
Councillor Aaron Elliott.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just to note, with the crushing of vehicles, it sounds like the leader might get on very well with Jeremy Clarkson. I'd just like to say I absolutely support this motion, and I'd like to expand on a point that Councillor Harding made. Sooner or later, people are going to get hurt. Well, they have been hurt. There's been cases where people have been killed, when they've been knocked over, and people have been sentenced, received prison sentences as a result of that. And also the riders themselves sometimes, accidents can happen, and that can mean them getting hurt too. So this works for both the possible victims that they might hit, but also themselves should they come a cropper. So, thank you.
Councillor Lynn Miller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's in the sort of the same subject that we're on. I think also that it means that a lot of people living in blocks of flats need educating about how to store these vehicles, how to charge the batteries, etc. And I feel that will come on, obviously, to our housing department or repairs department to look into this, just to advise some of our residents who might have them or might not, is that the safety of themselves and other people actually when they're charging. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Amelia. We'll bring this back to the leader for his final comment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm trying another machine now. Stuart didn't want to share his one anymore. So I'm moving on. I'm taking Vicky's instead. So thank you, Vicky. As far as this issue is concerned, I think this is something that I'm pleased we're all getting on board with. Certainly in this chamber, anyway. We have been working hard just to scotch any rumours that we haven't been time up with the police, because we've been working with the police to try and find the powers to deal with this for a couple of years now. Unfortunately, they keep swapping their senior police team in Gravesham every 2 years. So you get to a point where you're about sorting out the problem, you get excited, and then they change. And that's what we've been finding. So we're trying to jump ahead of it this time, get the orders in place, and then whoever comes in from the police side, they catch up with us. So we're trying a new method. Now, this hopefully will help all of us. But I think it is about the problem vehicles and the bikes and the e-bikes and everything else. We can't tolerate that on our pavements and roads and our car parks and in our fields and on our play areas where the kids could be playing. People shooting around with motorbikes, quad bikes, e-bikes. It's not safe. It's not good for our community. So we've got to get behind dealing with it. I think I was very clear about saying everybody in this chamber and the police. You may have noticed I avoided saying Kent County Council because they're not backing us. They're not supporting us. Because if you look at the article on page 39, page 45, there's a paragraph there, 5.3. We're talking about we're bringing in our own mobile cameras. Mobile, because we don't have to fix them on lampposts. And I'm sure we'll come back to that item later. Because Kent are demanding these little cameras, probably the size and weight of a bag of sugar. They want us to test a lamppost. It can bear the weight of that little camera and charging us £1,000 a lamppost. Now, you don't have to make many inquiries to put a camera up to blow a lot of money in our borough on testing their lampposts, which they've just tested in order to hand them all over and test them for a health and safety reason. It's a ridiculous rip-off by Kent County Council. That's got to stop. We've all got to get behind this. We've all got to make sure that if we want cameras up to monitor an area, we can. So we can be doing what we can. We need others to join us in that message. So if anybody's got any influence at Kent to remove that £1,000 blockage per camera test on a lamppost, we need that done. Because all of us here want this matter dealt with. And yeah, I'd love to have something that I can crush. Because the only reason it's being crushed is because somebody is using a motorbike, a quad bike, a car inappropriately or dangerously. It's gone through the courts and it's been taken from them for those reasons of being dangerous. That's why they're going to be gone. That's why we need them off our roads. We need a good, safe community. But we do need Kent to get on board and squash this ridiculous £1,000 a lamppost test. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Is everyone agreed with this motion?
Item 9, you read down to, underneath, motion 1, sorry, there. Yeah, okay.
Item 9, to consider motion of which notice has been given under Council Proceed Rule 15. 3 motions have been received. We will consider each motion in turn in order listed in the agenda. Given the length of this motion, I propose that these motions have taken as been read. Motion number 1, town twinning. Can we please invite Councillor Mead to move on motion?
Pleased to move, Madam Mayor.
Pleased to formally second, Madam Mayor, but we reserve my right to speak.
Councillor Mead.
So thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm proud to move the motion tonight that would enable Gravesham to establish formal relations with the Ukrainian city of Chernihiv. And I thank the Leader of the Council for his support with this initiative, and indeed all colleagues across the Chamber who have been supporting the people of Ukraine since 2022. I'll start by stating the obvious, and that is that Russia's war against Ukraine is illegal, it is completely unjustifiable, and that there has to come a time when there is genuine accountability for the savage wickedness that the people of Ukraine have had to endure for far too long. Now, whilst wars are not won in council chambers, I think it's worth, by starting this debate tonight, by understanding the real consequences that Russia's illegal war has had here in Gravesham. Back in 2022, the resulting energy crisis that was caused by this war forced this council to find additional financial support for our leisure centres so that we could keep our swimming pools open, and the wider energy inflation placed further pressures on this council's budget every year since. Putin's illegal war has caused prices to rise for every single household in this borough and increased the costs and challenges that we face as a borough authority in the delivery of our services. It's important that in agreeing this motion tonight that colleagues recognise the local impact that this war has had, and indeed the incredible bravery of the Ukrainian people who at this time are literally holding the front line of European security. Now, Britain did not become the nation that we are today by simply standing silent in the face of aggression. From the darkest moments of the Napoleonic Wars through to the horrors of the Second World War, it has been widely understood that freedom in Europe and security here at home are not separate causes, but one of the same thing. The modern legacy of town twinning was born from the ruins of Europe and the World Wars. It grew from a belief that peace could not be built and maintained by governments alone, that it had to be built and actually owned by people in towns, in villages, by schools and by communities who stand together choosing friendship over hatred and partnership over division. Now, here in Gravesham, as set out in the motion that I've moved this evening, we have a proud and long-standing tradition of friendship beyond our shores. Being the first port on the River Thames, international collaboration has shaped this borough through the centuries, and through our established links across Europe and beyond, our borough has shown time and time again that maintaining strong international friendships is important. And today I want to pay particular tribute to the Gravesham Town Twinning Association. For years, this local group of volunteers have carried forward the legacy of twinning with commitment, decency and quiet determination. It has helped us ensure that Gravesham's international friendships from France to Germany to India to America are not merely names on signplaces like they are in some places around the UK, but real living friendships between people. We should also recognise, Madam Mayor, that this friendship with Ukraine did not begin in this chamber tonight, for since 2022, families across Gravesham have shown what solidarity in action truly looks like. Some have opened their homes to displaced Ukrainians through the Homes for Ukraine scheme. They have welcomed people who have arrived in this borough who have fled bombardment, fear and uncertainty, the type of which very few of us in this chamber can ever begin to contemplate. Others have collected aid, packed boxes, donated supplies, raised money, volunteered time, attended events, flown the Ukrainian flag with pride, or simply made it clear in their daily actions that Ukraine was not alone. Those acts may not always make the headlines, but they do matter, Madam Mayor, and I see how much they matter to the people of Ukraine when I go out there. And these individual acts are the true character of the Gravesham that I love, and that's why this twinning is not the beginning of friendship with Ukraine, but actually a marker for all the good work that's been done in this borough since 2022, and all the good work that I hope that will follow tonight's vote. Churchill's vision for Europe was whole and free, and that vision is very much being tested in Ukraine today, and I've seen that struggle with my own eyes. As colleagues will know, since 2023, I've travelled deep into and across Ukraine through cities and communities that are living under constant shadow of missile, drone attacks, and in some cases, occupation. In this time, I've stood alongside local municipal leaders trying desperately to keep their services running. I've been alongside volunteers delivering aid and seen families in the remotest of villages rebuilding what Russian forces have tried on a daily basis to destroy. It was back in 2023 that I first stepped foot in that ancient city of Chernihiv, and it's an absolutely incredible place like nowhere that I've ever been before. For Chernihiv is not just another city, it's one of the great, if not, in my view, the greatest historic cities of Europe. It's ancient, it's dignified, and it's deeply beautiful. When you walk through old Chernihiv, you feel the weight of the history amongst you immediately. It is the land of the Cossacks, it is the home of the Kievan Rus. You see old fortifications and you see cannons sitting high on the banks of the Desna River. And for those of us from Gravesend, there is something strangely familiar about that site, for it brings to mind images of our fort gardens, a sense of place that's shaped by strategic position in relation to the capital, its defences, its river, its history and its people. And then you look up into the sky and you see the mighty domes of the ancient cathedrals and monasteries of Chernihiv standing witness to a civilization that is actually about a century older than Moscow itself. Now, back in 2022, when the Russian forces came across the border, Chernihiv found itself literally on the front line. The Russian invaders expected Chernihiv to fall within a matter of hours. They expected surrender, and they expected that they would be able to advance from there onto Kyiv. But as we know, Chernihiv did not fall, and that's why it was afforded heroic city status of Ukraine. Now, the city itself was bombarded, it was isolated, bridges were destroyed, cutting off communities entirely. Homes and hospitals were hit, families were forced into basements, civilians were shelled whilst they were queuing for bread. Conditions in those darkest moments of 2022 were beyond horrific. But amidst all of that terror, the people of Chernihiv refused to give in. For Chernihiv knew what was at stake that day, and that was freedom. I don't believe that there is a single person in Chernihiv today that's untouched by this war. Every family has a story. Every school, church and hospital and business have felt the weight of the Russian aggression. And that's why, Madam Mayor, I'm proud to move this motion, because there is so much that we can do as a community to stand by the people of Chernihiv. Now, when I first visited Chernihiv, I was taken to a school, and in that school there was a mural of Big Ben.
Sorry, Councillor Mead, can you just quickly wrap up?
I will summarise here just very quickly. There was a mural of Big Ben on the wall, and it just brought me to tears almost to see that, because there were children 1,500 miles away that embodied our values through that mural. And just to summarise there, Madam Mayor, there's a lot that we can do through this twinning relationship, and I fully commend it to the Council tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Mead. Councillor Mocker-Cox, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'd like to join the Leader of the Opposition in paying tribute to those that have supported Ukraine throughout many years, including many people in Gravesham that have done very well in raising funds, in getting supplies and placing them over there at the need where it's needed most. I'm pleased to support personally this twinning motion. I also thank Chernihiv City Council for their invitation to twin. Gravesham has long supported Ukraine. Gravesham Borough Council has long supported Ukraine, and we can see just outside on the community square right now, the flag has flown for a significant amount of time, despite, sadly, unfortunately, some opposition from residents in the borough who don't realise, I think, the impact, not just in Ukraine, but the impact it has here as well. And the Leader of the Opposition was right to raise that, because I think it's sad that we've not learned as a country, as a world, some of those lessons from World War II. There is war in Europe once again, and these are lessons that seem to have quickly been forgotten far too quickly. And we really must remember them once again. And it's by doing things like twinning, I think, where we have not just friendship, but learning, education, sharing of culture. And that's why twinning was established in the first place. And that's why the Twinning Association here is so strong now. It continues those links. We had visitors from France just very, very recently in this very room, continuing that share, that culture, that dialogue. Because if you don't have that dialogue, then in that absence, something will fill that void. And so it's important that we have whatever methodology we use. And I think twinning is an important part of that. But so is important is being an ally. And an ally isn't just about token gestures. It is actually about showing up. And it is about extending the hand of friendship wherever it is offered. And this is a fine example of that, taking that initiative, bringing it forward. I hope it has cross-party support in the chamber tonight. Twinning is not given lightly in this chamber. There are only a few that have ever had it here. So it is right that it's brought forward for this discussion. I hope it has the support. It certainly has mine. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Mocker-Cox. Councillor Jenny Wallace.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to say a couple of things. I think Councillor Mead is to be commended for everything he's done by visiting Ukraine and bringing this back. And the fact that it is actually being proposed that this should go through our town twinning is excellent. Ukraine is indeed a beautiful country. Its people are beautiful people, and they are tough, and they are indeed exceedingly brave. And anything we can show to the Ukrainians that we support them is a good gesture, because they need every inch of our support. They need to know that we are reaching out to them in friendship. We are keeping dialogue going, because as Councillor Mokry-Cox said, unless you keep dialogue going, the thing that replaces it is war and war. We saw this in the 1930s, and some people will poo-poo me for saying that, but the markers are there. And the fact that this has come forward to here, and the fact that so many people in Gravesham support Ukrainian people is terrific, and just demonstrates the wonderful diversity and indeed love that there is within Gravesham people. Thank you, Councillor Mead, and I'm sure we will all support it. I hope we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jenny Wallace. Now we'll ask Derek Ashington, please speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tonight's proposal, as we already know now, is twinning with Chernihiv. Whilst town twinning is normally focused on cultural and civic exchange, this partnership carries an additional significance. The Chernihiv's citizens are facing daily the horrors of war and will really appreciate our support. If agreed, it not only reflects our commitment to stand alongside the citizens of Chernihiv during a period of these immense challenges, it will demonstrate that they have our friendship and support of our community now and into the future. So please support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Helen Ashington, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hyam was the first to twin with Novi Belas in Ukraine. I have been fortunate to have attended a few virtual meetings between Hyam Primary School and the Stary Belas, a comparable school in the Chernihiv region. These have been very well received, and both sets of children have benefited greatly. It appears that there is no language barrier between children. The Hyam children have sent cards and drawings to the Ukraine and received the same back, thereby making pen friends. I'm very much in favour of this proposal and hope that more schools in Gravesham follow Hyam Primary in connecting with schools in Chernihiv. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ashington. We'll now have Deborah Croxon, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I fully support this. Both my husband and I have hosted people from both Germany and France from our twinning towns, and we've actually formed friendships with those individuals. I think, and I can commend Councillor Mead for his work and his bravery going into a war zone. I think this is going to be very important for us to support this motion, because the people of Ukraine, as has been stated, are extremely brave and they're not giving in to the Russian invasion. So I think it is important to support this, and I think it will be good for both Gravesham and for the citizens of Chernihiv. I think we can both benefit from that. So thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I was about to say Dr. Croxon, but sorry. We'll have Daniel King, please. Councillor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I stand this evening as the chair of the Gravesham Town Twinning Association, and I rise this evening to also offer our wholehearted support for Councillor Jordan Mead's proposal to establish an official twinning relationship with the Ukraine city of Chernihiv. Town twinning is founded on the principles of friendship, understanding, cultural exchange, and mutual support between communities. At a time like this, when the people of Ukraine continue to demonstrate extraordinary resilience in the face of intense challenge, These proposals represent an opportunity for Gravesham to extend a hand of friendship and solidarity. A town twinning partnership with Shanahif will not only simply be symbolic, it will create opportunity for educational, cultural, and community links between our residents, schools, organizations, and businesses. Like Councillor Deborah Coxon mentioned, we just had few people came over from Cumbria. We hosted them and we formed friendship with them, which we hope will continue. It will enable us to learn from one another, build lasting relationships, and demonstrate that local governments can play a meaningful role in fostering international understanding. Gravesham has a proud tradition of welcoming and supporting people from diverse backgrounds. By establishing this new partnership, we will be reaffirming our commitment to those values while joining many communities across Europe that have strengthened ties with Ukraine towns and cities. The Town Twinning Association stands ready to support this development of this relationship and to work with the council, the community groups, and partners in Chernihiv to ensure that it becomes a vibrant and lasting success. I therefore urge members to support Councillor Mead's proposal and take these positive step towards building a relationship, a friendship that will benefit both our communities for many years to come. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Daniel King. Now we'll have Councillor Aaron Elliott, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I thank the Leader of the Opposition and the Leader of the Council for bringing this motion to us today. As somebody whose family took a mother and daughter into their home here in Gravesham after Putin began his war, I can speak personally when I say that connections like these are very welcome. It is a genuinely good thing to maintain and to grow our links with good people from around the world. And Chernihiv is a fitting place to build one. Our group will proudly be supporting this motion today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Councillor Lynn Miller, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. During COVID times, being a member of the Town Twinning Association, I thought about having the Zoom calls, and it took off quite well. So now we are in connection with most of our countries, and once a month we have an international Zoom, and I am rather hoping that we can now get the Zoom up and running to Ukraine so that they can feel that they are part of our family, of the Town Twinning family and of Gravesham.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Now we'll have Councillor Frank Wallen, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to say I support this wholeheartedly. Councillor Mockery Cox, said that this was like the Second World War in Ukraine, and he's dead right. I support the bravery of all the people in the Ukraine, not just the armed forces, but the citizens who are daily being bombed by Russia. So I will be supporting, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor John Burden, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I rise on my ability to come back as a second in the motion, and clearly want to support it. It's a good motion. The idea of twinning with this town is one that I think we all, and I'm pleased to see, are all getting behind. And when the idea first came to me by Councillor Mead, it's fair to say I wanted to have a bit more detail about it as to why that town or city, why Ukraine at this time, and with the Town Twinning Association on board, because I thought it was important they were. And I've got to say, Councillor Mead put a lot of effort, and not just going over there to get those connections, but actually doing all that background work to satisfy me that this is something our community could and should get behind. And I think it's not just the people in the chamber, will get behind it, but our community will as well. And it's interesting when you talk to people out there. I know people who are Ukrainian, as it happens, and I've got friends who are Polish, who are very tied into supporting the Ukrainian people and going out with medical supplies on quite a regular basis. And they're talking about the issues out there. And this, referencing back to the Second World War, is why town twinning really came about. It was to rebuild those links between shattered communities and rebuild trust between countries where sometimes that trust had gone. And I remember it was many years ago, I went to Newminster and I had a dinner with an old gentleman, and I always remember, I've never forgotten it, who actually made the point that he was in the Second World War in the U-boats, trying to sink our ships. And he said one thing that he always remembered about the British was our camps, when he got captured, were very nice. And he said, "You're nice people." And it always struck me at dinner to be talking about U-boats and sinking our ships is a strange thing to do. But it was actually a way of actually talking about bringing down the barriers of mistrust and misunderstanding and miscommunication that obviously happened between our countries at that time. And I think for me, I wrote down the notes here. In the last year, I've been to Krakow. And I went to a museum there that talked about Krakow as a part of that area, Poland, under Russian rule, how they lived under Russian rule, and that they couldn't really communicate with each other. They couldn't talk to each other. They couldn't trust anybody else. And that's what Ukraine's looking at if they lose this war. And I think what this is offering, we're not offering anything substantial in as much as we're going to send them loads of money. We're not sending them loads of military equipment. We're not sending them visas to come over here willy-nilly. None of that's going to happen. What this is offering hope. It's offering the ability to remind them that freedom of thought and movement, something they prized before this war started, continues and should continue and will continue. And we will be supporting that and making that argument for them. And we're offering them hope that they'll come out the other end of this and there will be another town in this country that wants to work with them and help them rebuild their life, rebuild their future, and build it on the basis of freedom, freedom of movement, freedom of thought, and the ability to actually be themselves and not controlled by others. And I think that is important. And if we learn anything out of the Second World War and town twinning, it's that ability to work with each other and have breaking down those barriers, building hope and building trust. And you get that communication back, a lot of the problems we all talk about being out there will disappear, because they're not people coming into this country with 16 tails and 3 heads or anything else. They're ordinary people, like anybody in this room today. We've got to work with each other and trust each other, and that will come through this type of linking, this type of cooperation. So congratulations, Councillor Mead, on bringing this forward, and fully support it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Burden. I'll invite Councillor Jazir, and then I'll ask Councillor Jordan Mead to wind up. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just rise to share my own personal support to this motion, and think it falls upon all of us to actually thank Councillor Mead for the time that he's put into this. You know, these things don't just happen. There's a lot of background work, you know, having gone out into effectively a war zone as well, not once, but numerous times to show support and actually do practical things there. I know with the supplies he's arranged, etc. So I think there should be some personal recognition for that. But it's very important that we don't allow history to repeat itself in Europe. And it's very important that we stand by people who are suffering. And as Councillor Burden said, it's very difficult to offer practical support very easily. But giving people hope and knowing that there are people on the other side of a letter or an email or a phone call who do care. And whether it's like, you know, Councillor Ashenden said, whether it's the school children writing or having pen pals or us engaging with guests from over the other side, it's very important. I was lucky enough to go to Neumünster in 2016 and then receive the guests over when they came back the following year. And these are so vital and so critical, these town twinning exercises. And in fact,
I often think we don't do enough. We should really be doing more, because there's so much to learn through shared experiences, whether that's about governance in those countries. A lot of lessons we can learn. I mean, we had a wonderful time out there. So there's so much to learn. But I think our firm message should be is that they're not forgotten, especially with the backdrop of what's going on in the Middle East now. Some attention has come off the plight of what's going on in Europe, and not saying that we shouldn't be worried about what's going on in the Middle East, but I do feel that some of that spotlight has come off what's been going on, and almost Russia have had somewhat of a bit of a free hand over there. So it's very important that we have our support noted, stand by the people there that are suffering awful aggression, and once again, just want to lend my own support to this. Thank you.
Councillor Mead.
So thank you, Madam Mayor, and indeed thank you to all colleagues for the cross-party consensus that we have on this tonight. I think it's clear that there are times when communities are called to show what they stand for, and we've done that with great pride this evening in Gravesham by showing that this borough does stand for freedom and does stand for people who are facing aggression. I just want to add that pay tribute actually to the municipal leaders out in Chernihiv that I've had the privilege of working with since 2023. Bravery is not a word that should be used lightly, but these people are the absolute epitome of what bravery means. They just get on with the job despite horrific conditions. Day in, day out, they deliver local government services. And there's a lot there that I think we can take back from what they do on that day-to-day basis in terms of resilience, in terms of breaking down some of the bureaucracies that we've got ourselves into through our habits over the years. I know that tonight on our live stream link, we're actually being joined by representatives of the Chernihiv community, who I know will be very excited and proud that this motion will hopefully in the next few minutes be going through. They're looking forward to a real mutual relationship with us. Certainly, Councillor Milner will get that Zoom link established as soon as possible because there is so much that can now be done on the back of this relationship. As Councillor Ashenden rightly pointed out, I've got already a number of schools across this borough that want to commence relations on a similar basis to what Higham have already established. And I think this could be the start of something very special. And as I said earlier, a reminder of all that good work that's been done collectively in this borough since 2022. So my thanks again to all members for the support this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Mead. Is everyone agree with this item? Thank you. Motion 2, withdrawal threshold of the council's own planning application. Can I please invite Councillor Aaron Elliott to move the motion?
Pleased to move, Madam Mayor.
I'll second and reserve the right to speak, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Elliott, would you like to speak, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I feel like GBC motions are like buses today. You wait forever for one to come along, and we've had 3 at once. This motion is about helping councillors. It's saying backbench and opposition members should not have to feel bulldozed by an administration that seems to not be listening to its residents. This is an opportunity. It takes off the pressure and simply takes this council's own words that we are a listening council and ensures that translates to one of the most contentious but easy to do areas of the council's own business, namely when GBC, acting as the housing authority promoting its own development, receives enough objections to one of its own proposals that it must listen to its people and go back to the drawing board. Simple in practice, but with built-in safeguards. And I thank the Deputy Monitoring Officer for reviewing this motion and confirming it is lawful. But we have the distinction between GBC as a planning authority and GBC as a housing authority. We may hear today that the leader would rather I had come to his door to suggest this, and that it needn't have gone via a motion to council, and I thank him and appreciate knowing this would be the case, as he has repeated in speeches at previous council meetings. But that would have robbed us of the opportunity to show residents at the most public setting available to us that we are true to our word when we say we are a listening council. We now can say in public, to our public, we hear you and we are taking steps to improve trust. We may hear claims today that it would make GBC planning and building impossible. It would not. It comes with scaling thresholds that are calibrated using the council's own recent application and objection data. It would have protected Constable Road in Painters Ash. It would have protected Worcester Close in Iced Rise. Together, these applications drew many hundreds of objections from the public for projects that chipped away at our green spaces. We may hear that this wastes money on schemes that get withdrawn, but the opposite is true. That risk already exists. Every contentious scheme can be refused at committee, where members rightly can't be predetermined. Withdrawing earlier during consultation stops the spend sooner. This saves money, it doesn't waste it. We may hear from some in this chamber that we are blocking affordable housing. We are not. This motion simply forces a pause and a rethink and does not prejudice a fresh application being brought. It doesn't cancel a single home. It sends it back to be designed with residents, not at them. And let's be clear, only genuine, valid objections count. Duplicate and template campaigns are discounted, so this measures real community concern, not who can run the biggest mail merge. To our residents who have found themselves frustrated by our planning, we hear you and we're taking steps to improve trust. To members in this chamber, you may disagree with those thresholds. This is a first step in a better direction. Not necessarily perfect. We do our best. If you think it's off, suggest an amendment and let's see if we can agree on something that works. Thank you for your time. I'm proud to move this motion.
Councillor John Burton, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Picking up on the issue of an amendment, I will be proposing one. If you can circulate it, please. I will be proposing the motion be amended that the council resolves to, at that point, delete paragraphs 1 to 7 and supplement them with a new set of words. And I'll read them out whilst the motion is passing round, and then we'll be asking for a seconder, if that's okay with you, Madam Mayor. Yeah.
Yes.
The words are, where the council submits a planning application for its own development, a Regulation 3 application, the council, in its capacity as the applicant, will actively review all submissions from neighbours during the local planning authority's public consultation on the application. For this purpose, the council, as the applicant, will evaluate only valid representations. These are unique submissions from separate individuals or organisations that raise material planning considerations within the statutory consultation period. In line with criteria set out by the monitoring officer, any duplicate, identical template or out-of-area representations will be filtered out. This ensures the council, as the applicant, accurately understands the level of genuine local support or concern, rather than simply measuring the volume of an organised campaign. Can I have a seconder, please, for that?
Please second the amendment, Madam Mayor, and reserve my right to reply.
Thank you. If I can just speak to the motion, Madam Mayor. I fully understand the concern of planning for people in our community, particularly when it brings forward schemes that are brought forward by this council. There are obviously going to be schemes where the council has brought through schemes where people don't like them. And I've been at planning committee where our schemes have been refused by our planning committee. And that's only right and proper. But it is also right and proper that the council tests what is acceptable through the planning system to bring forward schemes in our borough. Because our duty isn't just to a few people, 20 people, 100 people or 200 people that might be inclined to join a campaign against a particular scheme. Our duty is to the residents of this borough to provide housing that is well designed in suitable locations. And the true test of that needs to be the planning system. The authority is but an applicant. We can come up with good ideas, we can get them designed, and we can bring them forward. We've got a design guide that we had to follow, which is brought in by and supported by all members of the council. We have national rules and laws around planning that we have to abide by and consider. And then applications go through to the committee. And because it is our application, it can't be dealt with by officers. Regardless of how the government may or may not be changing the rules in due course, our applications will always be considered by a planning application to a committee of this authority, or the authority that will come after us if local government or reorganisation comes. It is important that that application of all is dealt with in public, so that people can see the arguments for and against, can argue publicly for and against. And if publicly it is seen to be the right scheme, providing accommodation and housing for people who need that in our borough, in that location, then it will get supported. And it's interesting, a scheme was highlighted in the rural area recently. Actually went to Secretary of State, and it went to him to decide whether it should go forward or not, because there was an argument whether it was in Greenbelt or not. It was supported because it was compliant with the rules. It was compliant with planning. It was compliant with what we had decided as a committee on the council, and it had met the guideline of design. And that is what we need to be doing. We need to comply with the system that we got. It may not be a perfect system, but it is a system that has worked for us for numerous years. It has the ability to take comments, both good and bad, from the public and from other people on any scheme. Surely that's got to be a better way of actually representing our communities than simply saying, right, we've got a little body of people who oppose it and therefore we can withdraw it. And the argument that you can do, it doesn't matter, just go back. It doesn't cost much to keep redesigning and putting all the consultants on. Don't pay these people. They cost a lot of money. So you can't just keep on doing that because they cost a lot of money. That's our residents' money that you're wasting. What we need to be doing is considering, is that the right location in the first place before we even start? And if we're doing that, and some of the schemes we have done, well, we actually involved and consulted with the local residents before we built these blocks of flats, for example, in Westcall. They wanted them. They saw what was coming. We got them backing it and supporting it because it's the right thing to do. That is how you move forward this sort of item, not the motion that was previously being proposed. And I would ask all members to support this amendment. And a clue, when it comes to vote on this one shortly, there's one word that you need to write in front of you now, that when you're asked, do you support it or not, if it does go to a vote, the word is for the motion. You're going to be for the amendment. This is an amendment that you will vote for and support, please. That's the one word you need in front of you. Yeah? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Does anybody wish to speak? I'd ask that question.
We have just amended this motion. Does anybody would like to speak? Councillor Mockery-Cox.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Happy to speak in support of the amendment. I think there's some key issues that need to always be considered with planning. It's always an emotive subject, but we are bound by a framework that is not set by us. It is a framework that successive governments have imposed on local authorities for many, many years. And currently the Town and Country Planning Act 1990, I mean, that's the current range, but the planning acts have been around for some time. Successive governments have imposed edicts on us, and the NPPF was put in 2014 and subsequently revised so many times, including this government, but it is still something that is set by successive governments. But one of the important parts is that actually when people do submit, is about material planning considerations, and they are valid representations. And valid's an important one because I do agree fully that it should be unique, separate individuals from organisation that raise those material planning considerations. Far too often, residents, companies make objections based on their own considerations rather than material considerations, and it's a distinction in law that is very important. There are a limited scope of what counts as a valid objection or a valid support, and we must remember it is about a valid representation. It could be in support as well. But where I think this chamber absolutely will unite on is those that are completely invalid, those that have those identikit sort of duplicate, in especially out of area representations, where anyone sort of piles onto an idea and it makes it look like there's absolutely hundreds, but actually when you filter it down, it's 10, 20 people. And while those 10 and 20 people have absolutely valid views, if it was 100, 80 out of area, how do they know what matters to those residents? And it's important that they are listened to and those representations are received, but they're processed in line with the application, and they're processed and listened to in the report that is quasi-judicial in nature by officers under delegated powers given to them by us under the Constitution or by the planning committee themselves. So it isn't so easy to do just a sort of number, and we can locally implement as many restrictions as possible. The design guide the leader has mentioned as well. We can make sure that those material considerations are important, but we must ensure that we need to understand accurately the level of concern rather than just measuring the volume of what could be an orchestrated campaign. And that takes a bit of distinction that isn't in the original motion, which is why it's right to amend it here. We will always review all submissions from neighbours. We have just recently, as colleagues will know, amended what used to be you could submit anonymously, and we have removed it. This administration, only a couple of years ago, moved away from making sure there was anonymity allowed, because if you're going to make a comment, you must stand behind that comment. And if it's defamatory, if it's against the law or illegal, then rightly it is reported, because we have a duty to protect our officers, but to protect elected members as well, and make sure that only valid considerations there. Because some of the comments that have unfortunately been received on applications that we are talking about some council homes, we are talking about cascades, we're talking about things that we have brought forward for the good of the community, unfortunately have been wrong in nature. We have a housing crisis. We do have a housing crisis. We have 5,500 council homes. We used to have 12,500 council homes. And whether or not the merits of right to buy for another debate, but we cannot deny that actually the need for these housing is important, and we have a right and to make sure we provide, and a duty to provide decent housing for people. That means it rightly goes to committee for that consideration. So it's important we have those representations, but it's done in a quasi-judicial manner. It's right that it is done with the fullest of information possible, but then it is up to members to decide, and that's his right as well. If the council does its own application, it is right that members take their decision in a quasi-judicial manner. And as the leader has rightly pointed out, Madam Mayor, that has often sometimes led to refusal as well, because that is the right thing to do, separating the policy from the decision-making process as well. So I support the amendment. I encourage colleagues to do so as well. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mockley-Cox. We'll have Councillor Lenny Rolls, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I rise to speak in support of the amendment to the motion. I think it's actually a good thing to see this being discussed, primarily because it demonstrates that we are a local authority that are bringing forward applications, GBC, to build new leisure centres, to build council homes, to build housing that tackles the housing crisis that's taking place at the moment. It's something to be proud of, I think, for all of us across the chamber. But that doesn't mean that in doing so, we don't need to take into account and consideration the views of residents that live close by, and we always have. You know, for all of the applications that have come forward, there's extensive consultation that takes place, and I don't think that the motion in its original form worked. because everyone's individual view should count. So the point made by Councillor Mockery Cox, everyone's view should count. It shouldn't be based on the volume of complaints or what have you that comes in. Some of those complaints may be completely unfounded, not valid complaints for the planning application. It shouldn't just be based on the volume of feeling, or you'd have nothing built anywhere, and that wouldn't tackle the housing crisis. But where there are valid concerns, they should be listened to and are listened to. You may have a number of people bringing all sorts of material considerations forward that should be considered. And that's why, as councillors that sit on the planning committee and can consider those objections or supportive things as they come through, or support for a particular application, it's absolutely right that this amendment, therefore, is supported by everyone in the chamber, I believe, to the motion, to demonstrate that we do listen to people out there, that their concerns or support for a particular planning application are taken into account when a application is then proceeded with or not. And there have been instances where there haven't been. And the GBC bringing forward these applications to build things that our residents want, I think, is something that should absolutely be supported, but it needs to be done in the right way. And I think that this amendment that's before us now to the original motion offers an opportunity for that to be done, because it means that everyone's individual response to an application, let's say, rather than objection or support, counts. You could have one response to an application that is for or against, that brings forward points that have never been considered before. Does that mean because there's only one that application shouldn't consider the objection that's before? No, that shouldn't be the case at all. That's why this is a sensible amendment that amends the motion in the right way. And I'd urge everyone to support this amendment to the motion going forward. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
We'll ask Councillor Lee Croxton, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I rise, and having for many years served in one capacity or another on the planning committee, I can say it is an extremely difficult committee and one that is becoming more and more difficult. But the one thing that I've always recognised is you're between a rock and a hard place. On one hand, the general public, or at least the public who are affected by a planning application, believe that if the majority of people around them support them, then that makes the application invalid. And on the other hand, you have planning law. And the planning law is saying and becoming increasingly more firm in its determination that local authorities must not stand in the way of providing more housing, more facilities, etc. You've got those two things, and between the two stand the planning committee and the planning officers. And I feel very much for anybody who served on the planning committee, and certainly for planning officers, because it's a catch-22. You can't win. Now, my problem with the original proposal is that you can't rewrite planning law. The planning committee has to abide by the law as it exists. You can't simply say that if a number of people object, then this has to happen. You can't do that. The people who are on the planning committee are there, independent, without any predetermination. They have to look at the views of the officers, the views of ward members, the views of local residents. And those views are reported to the committee. They are reported. Nobody can doubt that. Nobody can say that they offer them members of the committee who make those decisions are not aware of what people want or they think, particularly those who are directly affected, and those people who are in the local area but not necessarily seeing it from a community or a borough-wide perspective. That is the simple fact. And therefore, to try to suggest there should be rules that restrict and tighten and determine is simply not admissible in planning laws. I understand it. You have to have an open mind. You listen to what people say and you make the best decision you can. And I can know there's been many decisions that people don't like. But people on other politicians, other ward members, but you have to believe that people are acting honourably and listening and making their view for the whole borough and the whole community and residents as a whole, not necessarily a, let's say, self-appointed set of activists. So therefore, I think, although I understand why original proposal was put forward, I think it is vitally important that the amendment for the sanity of the planning process is accepted. And certainly I will support the amendment.
Councillor Jordan Mead.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and it's been certainly an interesting debate so far. I've thought long and hard about how the Conservative group should approach this motion today, because I do agree that it was well intentioned in the way that it was brought forward, because I myself have stood there in the past, as members will know, and not always got the decisions that I've fought for at planning committee level. But that said, we have an established process and we have a set of rules that, whether or not we like them, they are the rules. We do not set national policy from this chamber, and we do not set the framework in which our planning committee should or should not operate. And therefore, I do have outstanding concerns with the original motion as it was over the legality of the motion itself. And indeed the practicality of the motion itself. Now, I understand what Councillor Elliott said about the fact that there's been sign-off at some level about this being a legal motion. But actually, when I look at this in terms of planning law and what we have to do as a local authority when it comes to things outside of planning law, such as our fiscal responsibility when it comes to housing delivery in this borough, but also our governing or the principles that we have to abide by under things like the Equalities Act, I'm afraid I don't believe and I don't have the confidence that the original motion would stand the test of actually stacking up to back a legal position if that's what this council decided to do. With that said, I would like to remind all members, as the chairman of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, that we actually have a review at the moment undergoing, looking at planning process. And indeed, there is scope, I believe. We've got a next meeting on the 2nd of July for all members. That doesn't have to be a member of the Scrutiny Committee, but all members of this council to input in that process, where the end result of that will be formal recommendations that will go back to Cabinet, and then Cabinet will consider those recommendations and decide in turn if they can practically support the implementations of them. So just one avenue there to perhaps look at some of these issues going further. Now, another reason why I will be backing the amendment this evening that's been tabled by the leader is because although this motion as originally moved, as I said, was well intentioned in terms of trying to prevent development on green space, I have to say, as somebody who represents a rural area, I believe that an indirect consequence of the original motion would actually see more development forced onto greenbelt sites across this borough. Because whether we like it or not, we are not meeting our housing delivery targets in this borough. Those are targets set by government upon us. And if we don't bring forward some of the development that's urgently needed to get our housing and waiting list down in the urban areas, those units will still have to go somewhere. And what does that mean? It means the release of Greenbelt land. Another concern of mine is that at the last full council, and indeed at the last budget meeting of this council, we made it clear that we are a brownfield first development council. And one of the issues that was raised was about whether or not this council was going to look at using or utilising compulsory purchase powers in the future, something that my group fully supports doing. We've had sites in this borough that have sat completely empty for 20, 30 years that are crying out for development. And I'm afraid if we use those compulsory purchase powers, actually taking ownership of that land, what we could well see is a scheme for 300 units being blocked by 150 people, even though there's probably 90,000 people in this borough that would support that development moving forward. In addition to that, I think the other issue with the original motion was that a lot of these schemes that we bring forward at borough level are done in partnership. They're done in partnership with private contractors and private companies. And again, the legal issue over land ownership there is too complex to look at through a narrow motion like this, which is why my group tonight will be backing the amendment to the motion. And I encourage all councillors to do the same if you are genuine about committing to protecting green space in this borough. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Leslie Hill.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When I firstly read this motion, I must confess to a degree of bewilderment. I had to read it 2 or 3 times to properly understand it, at risk of sounding obtuse, because we're talking about here procedures, and I found myself in agreement with the last 2 speakers, Councillor Croxton and Councillor Jordan Mead. I firstly thought that this was a motion to try to protect the green belt, and I defer to nobody in my desire to do just that. But the more I read it, the more I thought about it, I thought it may have the opposite effect, exactly as Councillor Mead says. Also, if a motion such as this, where we're talking about planning procedures, as Jordan Mead has just said, we do have a scrutiny review of our planning procedures already in being, and this seems to cut across that. I also thought that this would cut across English planning law, and I thought it required much greater scrutiny than just being brought to a council and people can express their view. I don't mean to be disrespectful to full council. I admit that that's the ultimate decision-making body, but at the same time, you can only speak once here, and people can make comments to offset what you say. You've got no right to reply. It's just one person speaking for a brief period, and that's the only chance you get. I think something like this, where you're talking about planning procedures, really does need to be properly scrutinised, where you're looking for a way of questioning what's being said and trying to get to the right answer and the right solutions. So I wasn't really happy with the way this was being dealt with. So I think that Councillor Croxton made a lot of sense in what he said, and I also agree with the points that Councillor Jordan Mead has just said. I wouldn't want anybody to think that my group are doing anything to oppose development on green belt or green spaces for that matter. I find it quite bewildering, especially when I've gone round, as I've said before, delivering leaflets, and I see what used to be a nice green space between 2 roads or 2 housing groups now full up with a new housing development, and green spaces rapidly disappearing. It is frustrating, but at the same time, houses have to be built. People need somewhere to live, as was mentioned in a previous debate. But it's not very good if somebody's sleeping on a couch. So something needs to be done. So when I look at this amendment, I find it more acceptable than the proposal. But I think ideally there should have been a scrutiny process or a debating process where we're dealing with procedures rather than just a yes or no as a council motion. So in line with the comments made by Jordan and me, we will be supporting the amendment. Thank you.
Councillor Elliott, you right to reply, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I thought about raising a point of information from a couple of speakers there, but I figured I could just do it now. The original motion did not rewrite planning law. It was distinctly separate from the planning process. And as a result, was lawful, as said by the monitoring officer. I'm pleased that the spirit of what this tiny reform group has tried to achieve has been mostly maintained in this amendment. Our little group of 5 has helped bring this council along in trying to shine a light on the planning procedure. And I think we can support this amendment. Thank you.
Members, is that agreed?
All right.
Okay, for the time being, that's
Yeah, we'll call for a break now.
we'll call for a break for the talent typist to get a break, please.
Come back at 9:30.
Come back at 9:30, please.
tuna sandwich are my two favourite sandwiches. So, right, so to you.
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back, everyone. We have motion. We have motion number 3, environment, enforcement and waste management. Can I please invite Councillor Burden to move the motion, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you everyone for coming back to hear the third motion. I'm happy to propose the motion as set forth on the papers for tonight. Just need a seconder before going on.
Pleased to second, Madam Mayor, and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. This motion, I think it's important to this council to actually set out the case that the council has for a number of years now been very active in building up its enforcement powers and activity around fly tipping, cleaning our borough, dealing with rubbish in back alleyways and fly tipping. And it's something that we've been working hard very carefully with the police and other agencies to try and do something to improve our neighbourhoods, working with the communities. It's not perfect, but over those years, we've done a number of things, such as more litter bins being put in, which it may not be sound important, but if you are trying to stop people from littering, providing them somewhere to put their litter is actually important. It's actually also one of those items that came forward that required more litter bins, quite rightly supported by the Conservative group. And we recognise that, and we are doing something about that, because we do need to provide the opportunity for people to behave properly. However, as this is also showing, we are more than happy to deal with those who don't want to play by the rules. If people want to fly tip, then we have been raising more and more cases where we've been going to them and taking fines to them and seeking criminal action against them. And as our legal colleagues in Medway know, and was referred to earlier, I'm extremely keen to find as many people as we can. I'm happy to take as many people as we can to court, even if the legal evidence is weak in some cases. To me, it's more the evidence you're taking people to court that cause the shock than winning all the cases that will cause the shock. So if we went and took 10 people to court and won 2 cases, I'm not worried about potentially losing 8. I'm more pleased about we're taking 10 to court, because that's the message I want to get out there. Nobody can and should fly tip. And that applies to everybody in our community and anybody coming into our community from outside. I don't care who they are. If they want to put their litter and their rubbish on our streets, in our back alleys, on our public land, on our farmers' fields, or our pavements, they have no right to do that. That is illegal, and we need to enforce against them. I don't care who they are, whether they're even in this authority as an officer or a member, they will get enforced against. Initially, it may well be they will get spoken to and a word of warning as a sort of softly approach. I know people like that. I prefer the more hard-line approach of enforcing. But I've been told and advised going to talk to people and say to them, look, what you've done was wrong. You've employed a firm that claimed to have a waste disposal licence and didn't you do it properly. Therefore, it's your fault. You do it again, you'll get a big fine. I can see the argument behind that, but I can also see the argument of our community. Somebody's fly tipped or allowed fly tipping to happen. It's damaging our areas. We need to deal with it quickly and now and take solid enforcement against them. And that's why I'm so pleased with the numbers set out in this motion, where you can see we actually have done a lot. But also you will see right down the bottom, that thing I mentioned earlier about they're called our friends in Kent County Council, who are trying to impose a £1,000 fine effectively on us to test a lamppost, to put a camera up in areas where we know there's high areas of fly tipping taking place. Whose side are they on? They talk to Ken at the moment of organising a sort of strategy, a working group, bring all the councils together of how can we actually deal with fly tipping. Yeah, great idea. We've been doing it for years. Most councils in Kent, if not all, have been very active for years. What we have got a problem with is Kent trying to impose a £1,000 fine. I call it a fine. They call it a testing cost. To test a lamppost, they can carry the weight of a little camera. They've just tested all those cameras and those lampposts for their own health and safety purposes, that they can stand up, and changing the ones that are a bit iffy. So we know they can all stand up. They're all up there because they're still there. They allowed them to stay because they tested them all. But they want us now to pay £1,000 each time. We want to put a little camera on there to stop people fly tipping in our alleyways, our pavements, in public areas or on farmland. If there's a camera nearby, we can put it up there and capture these people who are doing it. That is ridiculous. So I hope we all can get behind the motion, celebrate the hard work our officers have done. And they've done a lot of work in the last few years. We need to be proud of that and celebrate that. Members of the community, over 800 have signed up to do litter pickering. We need to celebrate them. We also need, within this motion to support, we need to go to Kent County Council and say, come on, this is ridiculous, trying to impose a cost or a fine of £1,000 just to prove again a lamppost is solid and it's able to take a little camera that can capture those people who are fly tipping in our borough. Because we need that evidence. I want to do more court cases. I want the 10, even if we lose 8. So I want the message out there, we mean business. You do not come to this borough and fly tip. And if you do fly tip on private land, obviously the council haven't got a legal duty to go on there and do it. But we can offer a service through Rogerville. We have to do that because of public funds, and we can do a good service to help people clear that rubbish. Because we can do the job properly. We've got the licences. We can help. But we need also help from other agencies to get behind us in the hard work we're doing. So hence the motion, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Burnham. We'll now have Emma Morley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to highlight the great work of the environmental enforcement team here in Gravesham since it was created back in September 2020 by this Labour administration. It was a tricky time in the middle of the pandemic, but we still delivered on our promises. Residents said they wanted us to tackle fly tipping, and we have, with 2,705 cases investigated and 559 fines issued since this was set up. We've prosecuted 146 people, with 72 being handed sentences. The court system may hold us back at times, but we will continue to hold these people accountable as much as we can. In the past year, during operations with Kent Police and the DVLA, we've stopped illegal waste carriers and seized vehicles. One fly tipper was identified and found hiding in an alleyway. All will face prosecution. There's no excuse for fly tipping. There is easily bookable slots at the tip. We offer bulky waste collections, and we're introducing an affordable private alleyway clearance service, another of our manifesto promises. Our work with Kent Police, Community Safety, the Environment Agency, DVLA, among others, ensures we do everything we can to keep our streets clean. Most commendable, though, has to be the great work of our team of street champions. Set up in 2012 by councillors Lynn Milner and Lee Croxton, one of our officers, Jackie Denton, and others, as an initiative for residents to be the eyes and ears of Gravesham. The scheme has grown incredibly since then. Our first street champion was a resident from Denton Ward. To date, we have 881 volunteers, last time I checked, who give up their time to help our community. Almost 21,000 sacks of litter have been collected either on our days of action or simply by these lovely people giving up their time to make their local area tidier. I say it all the time, but if litter wasn't dropped, maybe these people could spend their time planting or freshening up, painting local areas to make them look a bit nicer, rather than having to clean up after the lazy, inconsiderate people who are dropping the litter. There's no excuse for dumping any amount of litter. or rubbish. We have an extensive network of bins in the borough, with more coming through Pride of Place funding. Of course, GBC's street cleansing team do an amazing, fantastic job, and you'll see them out early every single day. I always see them out every day, but they cannot be everywhere. We have 8 tonnes of waste collected in the borough every day, and we all need to work together to ensure we're keeping our borough clean. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Emma. I was about to call you Elliot. Sorry. Councillor Emma Mouldy. We'll now have Councillor Deborah Croxon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'd just like to commend the operational services team and the enforcement team that work really hard to try and keep the streets of our and lanes of our borough clean and free from fly tipping. I am actually a street champion too, and I've noticed there's been increased activity in Chalk, in the ward I live in, where people are actually taking more pride in their communities. And I think too that Kent County Council should really be brought to task on the load testing charges and also the costs that they charge for people to actually use the tips that are run by Kent County Council, because that is not helping with the fly tipping issue. But the team has worked really hard. And again, thank you to all of them, Emma's team and those environmental, and Shane also, for enforcing the fly tipping in our area. So well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah Coxon. Now we'll have Shane Mockery-Cox, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and I thank Councillor Bird and Councillor Morley for bringing the motion. I'd like to also join in tribute to the officers, because it's sometimes quite an unsung hero job going around the borough, dealing with the evidence, dealing with a huge mound sometimes of fly tipping that is not even the fault of, some of our residents aren't responsible for them. There are criminal gangs that come in and deposit this waste on our residents. Our taxpayers are left to pick up the mess if it's on public land. It's even worse for those that are on private land, and our faults are with those that are affected by that, because we cannot go in to clear that private land. They are still infected, but we can and do go in and enforce against them, and the statistics are clear for everyone to see. We've got a really good track record here in this borough of tackling litter and fly tipping, as the motion says, by increasing our litter bin capacity by 168% since 2019 is important. The motion talks about 875 street champions, but Councillor Morley said 881. Since this agenda has been published, that has gone up, which is a fantastic thing, and tribute to those that do so. It's a fantastic quick piece of volunteering that people do to care, because they care about their community, against those that do not. I think picking up on the leader's point about the CCTV cameras, it's something I know Councillor Croxton's fighting against at the moment. Councillor Morley is as well, and I did when I had the portfolios as well. It's something that's actually gone up considerably in a fine, but I actually got to tell the leader he wasn't completely right in this matter. It's not just £1,000 a day, £1,000 per time when you do it. They actually charge you £100 extra per column for permits once you've had it load tested. So it's actually an additional cost beyond that. The leader knows this, but I'll tell the council as well. Actually, Kent Leaders had a summit quite recently at the end of April in Westminster. The chief executive was there, and this issue came up, and I raised it with the leader of Kent County Council in person. I followed it up on email 2nd of May. I've got it here. I've yet to have a reply from the leader of Kent County Council in regards to this issue. I did this privately because I thought it was the right thing to do privately. I've yet to have a response for this. The response we did get, though, is all being summoned to a fly tipping summit as if it's the first time it's ever been discovered. I'm going to go to that summit. I have registered to attend, Madam Mayor. I look forward to hopefully educating KCC based on this motion, the statistics that we have done in Gravesham, what the residents have done, what our waste operative team's done, our environment enforcement team have done over a number of years, and maybe working together in partnership that we have done here in Gravesham. Maybe Ken can take a leaf out of our book and continue the conversion on the road to Damascus. And now they've discovered fly tipping is an issue, and we can work together to tackle this issue once and for all, because it really does take an entire area to come together to deal with this. We have done so in Gravesham. We've got a proud record of working in partnership with our colleagues in the Environment Agency, Kent Police, and many internal teams to deliver this. I look forward to KCC joining us on that journey. It is their decision, their choice, their costs. Not just do load testing, they also put fines and fees on the tip at Pepper Hill, and they made that decision. They've not decided to remove it. It's something that probably should be done. But ultimately, it is the people that cause the fly tipping and the littering crimes that are responsible, and it is right we take them to account. And if not for the PSPO earlier in there, give John at least the ability to crush at least one vehicle. I please, one more time, a plea that he gives a chance to do that, and that's why maybe we will suggest to KCC to make Gravesham Borough Council happy in this regard. Thank you, Madam.
Councillor Lenny Rolls.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll keep this fairly brief. I think the results that we've achieved since we focused on fly tipping, which was a manifesto commitment of this group, have been set out in detail, and they're set out in the motion. I think it's something to be proud of in terms of the offenders that have been caught and charged and dealt with, but it's something that we shouldn't have to do in any case. It's a minority of people in this borough and from outside of the borough that's been detailed that are coming in and causing problems and making it difficult for everyone else. And I'm pleased to see that we're putting in measures to deal with that minority. I'd also like to thank the street champions in West Court Ward. Myself and Councillor O'Malley have both been out with those street champions, as I know many councillors across the chamber go out as well, doing litter picking in our communities, but also the community groups like St Aidan's Church, who I'd like to give a big shout out to, who actually go out and do litter picks around their area and other areas, and other community groups that are doing that day in, day out, and shouldn't have to do it and should be able to focus their time and resources on other things, just like KCC. Now, we have some reform councillors in the room today. I hope that they can take back the message to their fellow reform councillors down at KCC, and we have reform councillors that sit on the cabinet at KCC that represent Gravesham as well. I hope that they can take the message back. I don't look at it as a fine, I look at it as a tax. I look on the fact that they're charging money and in one breath saying they want to tackle the fly tipping issue and asking local authorities to deal with it, and at the same time put obstacles in place and additional costs and burdens on district authorities by charging £1,000 plus licensing fees when we're trying to work to tackle the fly tipping and the issues in the borough and those that litter. Then they have the cheek and audacity to come back and try to claim credit because, again, they recognise that it's an important issue to residents. They're late to the party. We recognised that a long time ago, yet they offer no solutions. And one solution that we're leading from and asking for is for them to get rid of this lamppost tax so that we can deal with the fly tipping issues in our borough, and we're able to put up CCTV cameras to catch those that have no respect for the people that they live alongside, that litter and fly tip. And we can all agree those people need to be dealt with. And that's why this council's doing just that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Aaron Elliott, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm glad to support this motion today, and I'll start where it matters most, with the people behind the numbers, the enforcement team, our waste services, and the 875 plus street champions who adopted over 400 streets and alleyways. 21,000 sacks of litter isn't a statistic. It's a lot of cold mornings and unglamorous work, and this group thanks every one of them. I had something I was going to say about the costs. The idea of a testing cost and things has thrown me a little, so I'm not going to go into that, but I will say we need to be careful about costs with KCC, because it absolutely would not be fair to expect residents, taxpayers in Dover or Dartford to be paying for things in Gravesham. I look forward with interest to see how that goes. Thank you.
Councillor Jordan Meady.
So thank you, Madam Mayor. I fully commend the motion this evening, and my group will be giving it its full support. And I think the figures speak for themselves as part of the report. It is a tremendous amount of effort that's gone in on all sides, be that the members of our community that have stood up and volunteered as street champions. But I do think it's right that we pay particular tribute tonight to those operatives who get on their hands and knees and go through sacks. And I don't underestimate how dangerous that is to do that job, to find that single scrap of evidence that, as the leader pointed out, can be vital to securing a prosecution. And I fully support, as does my group, the leader's quest to get more of these prosecutions, because I think it's really important to remember that the council doesn't drop litter. It's our job to make sure that that litter is collected and disposed of responsibly once somebody else has committed a criminal offence. And that's hard work, but these figures prove that we as a borough are actually moving in the right direction, and therefore all of the items in the motion have the full support of my group. On the issue of the £1,000, or as Councillor Mockery-Cox quite rightly pointed out, £1,000 plus that we're looking at to stick cameras on lampposts, and the purpose of that is to secure greater prosecution rates and indeed to make sure that we have preventative measures in place to make our borough look better. Now, I would be very happy to support whatever action the leader decides to take in regard to this, because it is unfair that we are being prevented from doing this when taxpayers in Gravesham have already paid for these lampposts and these dues. They are therefore in service of the borough already. And if the leader was minded to write an open letter setting out the case, I would be very happy to sign it on behalf of the Conservative group. And I do believe that it would also garner the support of some of our parishes in this borough as well, that have to put up with obscene fly tipping within our rural areas. So as I said, the motion tonight has the full support of the Conservative group, and we fully commend the work and the direction that this administration is taking in tackling an issue that concerns every single member of our borough. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Lee Croxton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've been very brief. Maybe it's this jacket, as Dakota's already pointed out to me, that makes me think perhaps of Max Bygraves. For those who remember Max Bygraves, I want to tell you a little story. I can't say it in his voice, but I do want to tell you a little story. And it happened to me this morning. I lay in bed at 7 o'clock. Now, I have to say that fortnightly Tuesday is my favourite day of the week, the fortnight, because I go to pile up all the recycling and take the recycling outside, and I feel really good, particularly when I've disposed of my wife's bottles, empty bottles of wine. And on this particular occasion, I thought, oh, I'm going to lie in for another 10 minutes. And I did, unfortunately. And I thought, well, they're not going to come. They never come until 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock or something like that. I've got plenty of time. And then you hear that noise of the refuse lorry coming round, and you suddenly say, oh dear. And I screamed out to my wife to tell her to remove the waste bottles and the waste bin recycling. She couldn't manage it. By the time I'd got down in my dressing gown, which was not a pretty sight at this time, the refuse van had gone. But strangely enough, my wife was screaming and waving, and two operatives came back. She couldn't move the recycling because it's full of her bottles, but they did. But they picked it up, took it down the road to the wagon and put it in, brought it back, and then took away the food waste. Now, I bow to nobody in my appreciation of the operatives and the work they do. And that is just a good example. And they were really pleasant about it. And from later on, that very same morning, literally half an hour later, I went round with my, well, two of us with the 3 Cocker Spaniels and came across something that, again, was important. And this is the leader has mentioned about refuse bins. The amount of refuse bins you have equates to the amount of rubbish that can be put in them rather than on the streets. I know that because I know where all the refuse bins are because of the dog poo that I invariably have to pick up, take away and put in. Now, I really appreciate the fact that there is extra funding for that. It may seem simple, but that is just one very good example of helping to clean up the streets. And the third example I would refer to is that most of the time I've been a councillor, we know there has been environmental crime, and you can prosecute for people who offend, but we never had an enforcement team. We have never had a team that was actually enforcing. And I'm so delighted when you look at these statistics, because it really does show we're getting to grips with the problems on the streets. And remember, the one thing that really, I think, ultimately matters, apart from community safety, to most of our residents are things like dog poo and litter. And so therefore, the progress that's been made is to be welcomed, and so too are the operatives and the work they do. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Ijaz Aslam.
Well, what a load of rubbish. To collect, I mean to collect, yes. First of all, Madam Mayor, welcome as chair of this first council meeting for you. I think you've done a very good job, so hope it continues. Right, coming back to a bit of seriousness, this is a very serious topic, and I'm glad it has come here for discussion and debate. Not a lot of debate because there isn't. I think we're all in agreement that fly tipping is one of the worst crimes that our residents see day in, day out. And yes, rightly so, on the backs of our staff, our teams, we can make these very good statements about the hard work that they do, and their success is our success, and the borough's success. And I'm glad that we can go back to our wards and speak to our residents to give them confidence that the council has taken this very seriously. I know from my own ward we've had many issues there with fly tipping, etc., and the parish councils have been very thankful for the support that they've been giving. So it is very important. It's a very important topic. However, I think we should just go a little bit further. Just like fly tipping is a disgusting sight for anybody to see, especially when you're living in residential areas and somebody just doesn't care. I agree with the leader that if it is inadvertently fly tipping, meaning somebody threw a packet of crisps, yes, we can possibly educate those people. But if we're talking about serious fly tipping, there should be zero tolerance. And that should be I think, the message that this council gives to the residents to reassure them that we're going to take no ifs and buts about taking people to court and enforcing this. And the teams have done a great job. It's very important that we do this, because without enforcement, people won't take it seriously. And it is a serious a topic. But one thing I would like to add, and I hope, and I'm sure you will consider this, the whole council and the administration, is just like fly tipping is an unsightly phenomenon for everyone, so is graffiti. If you have a look in the town centres and the surrounding areas, it has become chronic. And this also has a devastating effect on people's perception of how the town is and how do we really care. And we all know we do care. But again, we need to show this message to the residents of Gravesham that we're not tolerating graffiti either. There's been some horrific graffiti not far from where I live, which was offensive to a lot of people, which I'm glad to see it's gone. But I'm seeing, particularly in travel routes, Harmer Street in particular, the top of Harmer Street, this graffiti has been there for God knows how long. And this has a real impact. And I'm sure the leader will agree and the administration will agree that we need to have the same message for graffiti as we do for fly tipping, because it's just as important on our perception and pride of Gravesham. Thank you.
We're bringing in Councillor Gary Harding, followed by the leader, Councillor Burden.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You know, I've got to say, it's like, you know, I've never heard so much rubbish be spoken tonight. I mean, I'm sorry, no, he spoiled my line, you know. But seriously, fly tipping has been a bane in the rural areas of Gravesham, especially in Mepham, Higham and Culverstone, Fargo. In fact, not long ago, there was one of our country lanes was literally blocked by a pile of rubbish. Someone just backed it, reversed into it, dumped what they could do in the middle of the night and drove away. So this is something that we could take it seriously. And I absolutely agree that I think, you know, we should be serious in how punishment for these people, and we should be more forthright. This is not something that we should have to put up with. You know, nobody have to put up with this sort of behaviour. And I agree that with this motion that we should all support this together. But I just got one final point about the cameras. I mean, I know people like to talk about the cameras on the post, but I had to. I actually looked at the internet, and with regard to, I know people like to have a dig at Reform, KCC, but the fact is that they inherited this actual framework. And I actually say that I agree that we should press the KCC, that just because they inherited it doesn't mean that they will continue it. So I think we should continue to press with the KCC, make sure, but this is something that's been going on for quite some time. So from that serious point, but I think, again, with this motion, I agree with that, and we should move forward, and we will all work together and support it, not just for Gravesham in rural, but for everybody. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Over to John Burden.
Sorry.
Thank you. Just winding up on the debate, I think it's obviously been a good debate across the chamber, people generally supporting it. A few interesting debate items coming out. I was just trying to imagine, for example, the weight of the recycling that was coming from Councillor Crox's house that required 2 operatives to try and pick it up. So 2 weeks of bottles taking 2 people to lift is a lot of bottles. And my suggestion there isn't necessarily to reduce the number of bottles, but you can go to a bottle bank on a regular basis, Councillor, and assist the process by actually dropping them in 2 or 3 times a week and reduce the total load that way, whilst maximising the recycling weight the council delivers on. So I don't think you need to upset your household rhythm by cutting on the numbers, but think about alternative ways of disposing legally using bottle banks. And I think there are those facilities out there which we all should perhaps use more. I think on the issue of graffiti, that is something we do take seriously. I do know that we have operatives available, and when it is reported, they do go around clearing it off, and if it's on private land and private property, advise how best to get it off, and on many occasions assist. Unfortunately, in the same way as graffiti, fly tipping, they're all the same thing, done by people who are quite ignorant about their activities affecting other people and how stupid their activities are and how they affect other people. I was watching BBC News this morning. I think it was this morning. I lose track of time sometimes when you watch their news items about young people who are using catapults to attack birds and wildlife and people. The ignorance of people doing something like that, unfortunately, those people are around us all the time. It's not always the same people, but invariably the same group of people. And that is what we as a community need to stand up against. All of us who are doing the right thing need to support each other and report on those who are doing the wrong thing. And by reporting it, we can get action taken. We can get the graffiti removed if we know where it is, because our officers can't be everywhere watching every wall. And the graffiti people aren't stupid enough quite often to have tags. Let the police know who they are. So we need to record the graffiti, but get it removed and prosecute those who are doing it. Likewise with fly tipping, we need to get it removed, but we don't dump it there. So when I see quite often in Facebook, I'm one of those old people that still follow Facebook. I know the new younger people do other modes of social media, but I haven't quite got to that yet. I'm still with Facebook. I've just worked out how to get onto it, really. So I'm really behind the network on it. But when you see all these people moaning about the council not picking up the fly tipping, well, actually, we didn't put it there. We didn't drop it there. We're doing very well in removing it. But perhaps they should examine themselves. Also, when you look on some of those Facebook bits in their various Gravesham Facebook accounts, when you see people say, well, got a washing machine, we put it out the front, does anybody want to come and pick it up? That's fly tipping. Do not think it is anything but fly tipping. And if you're stupid enough to put it on Facebook and say you've left your item on the public footpath for somebody to pick up, you're not doing them a favour. You're helping yourself by doing fly tipping. And I think we should start recording those and getting those people prosecuted as well. Because they've told us it's them who've done it. They've told us where they've left their rubbish on public highway. We need enforcement, and everybody needs to understand. If you do fly tipping, if you do graffiti, if you break the law, and if you do things that can harm other people in our community, the system will say that is not right. And I've got zero tolerance on that. We have to step on them hard and get them dealt with. We need a good, clean, safe community. We all deserve that. So let's work together and make that happen. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Burden. Now we go to item. Is that agreed, everyone? Thank you. Item number 10, to consider questions from members of the council. To answer any question received from members of the council of which notice has been given, I understand that there's no questions been received. Item 11, to receive the council announcement. The mayor's announcement. We have some events, including Maltown Evening in September. Haven't confirmed the date as yet. The 10th and 11th of October is the Mayor's Boundary Walk. Twin Dynasty in November, date hasn't confirmed yet. Sung Round the Christmas Tree, date has been confirmed, can't remember the date. Quiz night in February, and we have more announcements. At the moment, I'll pass the mic over to the Chief Executive.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I owe all members present an apology. At the very start of this meeting, I omitted to inform Madam Mayor to announce that we have a new face to our management team. The keen-eyed amongst you will have noticed that Andy Checkers has joined us. I say a new face. I'd like to introduce him to you. Some of you may remember Andy from when he was previously here 16 years ago. So sorry, Andy, I'm putting you on the spot now. But apologies, I should have said that at the start. Andy has joined us as of today, so he's picked completely the wrong day to join us because he's just given himself a 15-hour long day. But welcome to the team, Andy, and I'm sure members will take the time to introduce themselves to you over the course of the rest of this evening. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
This is the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding for the worshipful, the Mayor of Gravesham.